Yo, it's Mike Williams. Yo, Rumi. All right, so this is the third video and final video in our initial tutorial on building a marketplace MVP, which is an Airbnb style marketplace using Sharetribe's hosted marketplace platform. So we went through the initial basic setup configuration for our MVP, and our MVP is called Studio B&B, which is an Airbnb for studios. So now that we have the initial marketplace set up, we need to go through and do kind of a prep for our first real users and launch. So we need to make it very intuitive for users. That way they can have the best experience and we can get a little bit better feedback and some external validation for this MVP. So let's go through right now. One of the first things that we're going to need to do is, of course, post a listing. So before we try to onboard new inventory from other people, we should probably create our own and use a placeholder with some kind of some tips on the listing. And that's what I actually did for studio time when I right before I initially reached out to a few of the first studios, and I still actually had the kind of placeholder listing on there when I launched on product time, and then even when it was picked up by press. So we're going to click on post a new listing, and we're going to do renting out without accepting payments because once again, I don't have the payments integrated yet on this MVP. So we would need to do that before we did launch, of course, too, because we want our first inventory of real users to actually enter their payout information too, which is fairly simple. So we'll just do see your studio here. And then we'll just put a price. We're going to guess around the price per hour of the ideal kind of range that we want studios to charge per hour, because this is what they're going to see as a placeholder. So keep that in mind. So we can put 50 if that's about what the price range we would ideally like to see. So we'll say, see your listing here. And I'm not going to extensively type this out. I'm just going to put some placeholder. And then we would probably put like tips. So we would just list out a few tips for like our demo kind of placeholder listing, so studios could just get a good idea of what they would need to put. Probably about in this use case, more about the space, the studio itself, the equipment setup, what it's ideally used for, and then any kind of specifics for their studio that others would need in order to if they were going to be booking the space. We'll just put both. That way, if people use filters, and then location, we'll just use Santa Monica because that's where we are. And it populates a pin. So they use Google Maps as far as for their maps. Sharetribe does. And then we'll go through and we're just going to select our kind of placeholder image that we used before. Ideally, you probably want to have some kind of a visual image that you create like in Snappa, just to make it kind of look like very well branded and kind of slick. So in this case, we could just have like a background of a studio and then just like a watermark over in the middle of like the Studio B&B logo, or like see your studio here kind of thing. And we're just going to go ahead and post it. So yeah, so Sharetribe's doing a prompt again for the payments, but we're going to kind of skip over that step. So as you can see, I'm logged in. I have the ability to edit not only my listing, but I could edit any listing that I click on as an admin. So if we do have a few studios that sign up prior to us rolling it out to other external kind of testers or prep for a launch, we could go through and edit some of their listings and just send them a note saying that we optimize their listing. And that way we have some kind of consistency in all of our listings. We could upload better images if we find some for them or whatnot. We can also close listings. For instance, if they said, hey, take my listing down, or, I'm not renting it out anymore, we can close any listing as an admin. We can move to the top of the homepage, which is a great feature that Sharetribe has. So that way, if, we're speaking with a studio because it's, say, for instance, one of my friend's studios, and I tell them that, we're going to help drive awareness, and we probably want to put them where they're visible the most so we can move them to the top. If you're going to charge studios to sign up, and we had different levels like basic and premium, and part of the premium was being at the top of all results and listings, then we could, of course, simply kind of run a check on our end. It would be manual at first, but it would be just seeing like in a Google Sheet all the premium subscriptions or premium studios, and then making sure that they're always at the top. We would also probably want to show them in a newsletter that goes out to all users, especially kind of during launch and the where we're going to get some increase in users and exposure. We could do that by just simply clicking on this, showing the next newsletter. So here's the main listing, and then we'll go back to the home page, and that way we can see an actual listing now. All right, so we're logged in, and if we're logged in, we're not going to see the cover once again. That's only for a logged out state. And then we'll see like our listing here. So all the listings will populate, and it's an endless scroll. So if you build up an inventory, say 20 down, it's an endless scroll all the way to the bottom. So some other things, we'll go to the admin panel really quick just to go through and just kind of run a check on if there's any other kind of configurations that we would need to do in order to try to get some external testing and prep for a launch from this initial MVP. So if we did want to have this on a custom domain or our own domain, we would need to upgrade, so not on the free trial. So we could just click on subscription here, and that would be through the Sharetribe. And we're not going to need to do any user management, any listing management for now. We're not going to be, we're not going to be monitoring any transactions or conversations for now, or reviews. We could potentially email all users if we did notice that some of the users from that user management were like studio domains. Then we could email users, sign up. If you're a studio, you can sign up, here and add your listing before we launch, kind of thing. You could send out invites. That's not really a functionality. I don't think that even needs to be on the admin panel. But we're good with our basic configurations. Once again, what we would need to do is remove the order type of the ability to list a studio without payments, since that's not what our MVP. That's not beneficial for our MVP, since part of our value prop is accepting payments and booking through our marketplace. So we need to remove that, and then we need to do our Stripe and or PayPal integration. In this case, we would do both. And then we would just finalize all of our welcome emails and our hint text and any of the last kind of settings that we would need in order to launch. But at this point, we have our basic MVP for Studio B&B, which is an Airbnb for music studios. We've gone through the basic setup. We've configured it so we have all the required functionality, and we kind of went through a lightweight kind of MVP or product pre-launch and kind of launch checklist. So now we're ready to get external users and prep for a launch and try to validate our MVP. Thanks.